Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to Women's Council of NAREB Women in Business Series. And this series is called the CEO Growth Series. And we are talking about everything that we need to know and talk about as CEOs in our business. And today we have Khadijah Caesar. Thank you, Khadijah, for joining us. I love
Thank
to
you,
see
Maria, for
you.
having me. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you
yes.
for
And
having
so,
me.
oh, of course, definitely. And today we are going to talk to Khadijah about scaling our businesses. And so, before we jump into our session today, Khadijah, I just want the audience to get to know a little more about you and your business. We know that you're Women's Council, so you want to start off with your position in Women's Council, and then let us know a little bit about your background and how you became to be the CEO you are today.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, so yes, I am Khadijah Caesar. I am the current president of the Women's Council of NAREB, the NAREB Women's Council of New Jersey, a New Jersey chapter. So, right, I've been in the real estate business I've been licensed since 2010, and I have been started off obviously a full-time realtor, and then I got my broker's license and I became a broker 2000 and maybe 7 years ago. So I spent the previous 3 years, no, 6 years as a broker of record at another company. I wasn't I didn't own that company outright. But I was the broker of record there. I had a partner there and myself. And then I have just recently branched out onto my own, where I'm 100% owner of my own brokerage, Monarch Realty and Associates. But I have been in the position of broker for the past, oh my God, time flies so fast, 6 years now. Yeah, 6 years. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Awesome.
yeah, and here I am.
Great, great. And so I tell us about your metro area, Jersey, because I'm unfamiliar.
Okay.
What areas or how much space do you span as far as your business is concerned?
So,
Coverage wise.
okay. So, yeah. So I am located in Northern Jersey, which we're right in the metro area outside of New York, tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, sometimes tri-state areas, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. So, but we are centrally located close to Newark, which is maybe 20 minutes into the city. So, you can imagine we get a lot of New York business.
Mhm.
Although I'm situated in North Jersey, I do, and I have, and my agents, we handle business throughout the whole entire state. So, New
Oh,
Jersey is broken down, North Jersey, Central Jersey, and then South Jersey, right? Because New Jersey is huge and it literally is like two different countries. Like South Jersey and North Jersey is not the same. People say Central Jersey don't exist, but that's debatable. But so what we do is in my yeah, so we handle the entire state of New Jersey. However, we are centrally located in North Jersey. Our market, the real estate market, there's ironically lately has been a lot of conversation where reports are showing that New Jersey has now been deemed the number one state that has had the highest increase in home values, right? Prices. The market is pretty much high everywhere, but New
mhm.
Jersey has seen the highest rate of growth. We attribute that mostly to, like I said, the proximity to New York. As you can imagine, the wages are extremely high in New York City, but what New Yorkers, they have the beauty, the privilege to, have the New York wage and then, live in, reside in New Jersey for New Jersey prices. So that's
Right.
what we're seeing. I mean, great for New Yorkers, not so great for, us New Jerseyans because we don't make a New Jersey. Well, the average person in New Jersey doesn't receive a New York salary.
Right.
So it's a little challenging. However, on our end as realtors, I mean, it makes it more competitive, but, we're not going to complain, about our commission splits going up, but it
Right.
does. But that's kind of, give you an idea of what we're dealing with our market in Jersey.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you for that. That is good context as we talk about our business. And so we're talking about scaling and basically growing
Mhm.
our business and what that looks like so that we're managing appropriately, right? And planning for growth. So can you just personally define what scaling is to you versus just growing?
Okay, sure. So I think so scaling and growing, right? A lot of times people use scaling and growth interchangeably, right? Because it pretty much sounds the same. When you scale, you're growing your business. When you grow your business, obviously you're growing your business. There is a difference though, right? Growing your business is something that we all aim to do. No one goes into business to be stagnant and same level that they were when they started, right? But what happens is growing your business involves your input, more effort, right? So you say you close 5 deals this month. So you know what? Now next month I want to close 10 deals or this year or whatever the case may be, right? But that involves more effort from you, more input, to get better results.
Hmm.
Scaling your business is, in my opinion, where you've taken the business that you've grown and now you can take that business and implement it on another level where it can almost run not necessarily on autopilot, but without as much input from you. So now you're able to scale because you've created systems, you put systems in place, right?
Hmm.
That allow you to take this business that you have grown from sometimes scratch, and now you're able to scale and multiply it on a different level. So
Hmm.
that's the difference, to me between, growing and scaling your business.
Definitely. And so you mentioned systems. And so can you maybe go further into that? And what's the first thing you like systemized that made scaling actually possible? I know, when we start our brokerage, I have a brokerage as well. I really didn't know if I wanted a boutique brokerage or if I wanted a large brokerage, but I knew that I had to have systems in place to where if I did decide to grow, that the systems were in place to manage 100 the same way that it would manage 5 or 10. So can you share
Oh,
with us some of your systems that you use in your brokerage
yeah,
for that would suit scaling?
absolutely. One of the first things that I did especially when I grew, at one point my office grew from maybe 8 10 agents at one point at the height. I probably had maybe, and always ran like a boutique situation, what I
Hmm.
consider boutique. To the height, I had like 42 agents at one point, right? And so at that point, one of the first things that I did was implement a compliance systems, right? Something that supported us being in compliance. We all, as you know, our industry compliance is everything. It's very important. You can make as much money as you want, but at the end of the day, compliance is very important in our industry. So the first thing that I had to do, especially as the agents grew and my office grew, was I had to implement a system that kind of set um, to ensure that our filing systems, our transaction flows, documentation, things like that were in compliance. And the way I did that was I created like a generalized location where my agents are able to go get everything that they need. And not only do they pull the information and the resource, the documents from that generalized place, but they're able to submit everything there in one place. Another thing I did too was I tied compliance into payroll. Now, if anything, agents will forget a lot, but they're not going to forget what's needed in order to get
To
paid
get
properly,
right,
right?
right.
So once I tied the compliance component into payroll, everything ran so smoothly. And because it came from, when I had less agents, right?
Hmm.
um, the common theme was, when it's time to close, oh, what documents do I need? What's this document again? Or, say they would get paid. And because prior to me implementing these systems, the payroll process was a little more lax, right? It was kind of like, we didn't have a lot of agents at the time at the beginning. So, you close on a deal, then it's like, okay, you can get paid pretty fairly. But once we grew, and we had more agents, it just wasn't reasonable, right? I'm only one person, and then I had an admin, so on and so forth. So once I tied that in, and but to go back, a lot of the things that were falling through the cracks were, agents were getting paid, but uh, files weren't being closed out correctly. So we were out of compliance, right? Which was an issue for everyone. So that was one of the first things and one of the main things that I pay attention to because it keeps us all accountable, not just the office, myself, my agents, going forward. So that was definitely something that's extremely important when you're implementing systems and processes in the office. Compliance is number one. So you want to make sure you have a well-oiled situation in
Right.
place that, keeps everyone in line and accountable.
Right. And so that is a very great tip because also, yeah, you have that audit piece. And so
Mhm.
you're basically adding another layer if they're auditing their own files in the process of getting
Yeah.
paid. So are there How is your structure as far as your office is concerned? When you did scale to 42 agents, did you outsource, let's say like transaction management? Was that outsourced, or did you find yourself outsourcing marketing? Were you keeping everything in-house? How are you managing that growth when you did grow to 42 agents?
So at that time, I was definitely lucky. I had an admin, and then we brought on a almost like a junior, like a broker manager, someone that was she was still an agent, but was under me, able to kind of take on certain tasks as far as like onboarding and things like that. And then I definitely outsourced the payroll. That was like number one. ADP was like a lifesaver because we just kind of switched it over. And then it's even like with the payroll. So for example, um, all agents, as soon as they get paid, as soon as they close, they come in with the check, they want to get paid right away.
Hmm.
Don't we all, right?
Right.
But it just wasn't realistic at that It just wasn't realistic anymore just to run the office that way. And then when you have smaller offices, you have a small boutique office, you may have, a few agents. It's plausible. It's not hard. Okay, I'll just, cut a check, so on and so forth. But I do think that I don't care if you have two agents or 25, put the system in place because it alleviates again, it keeps you accountable, it keeps you honest, and it keeps the agents the expectation there, and it just everything runs smoother. So
Hmm.
even like with, for example, like with the I did outsource the payroll because it made it easier for me, right? So it made it easier for the agents too with the expectation. So now ADP, I selected a payday. So, payday is on Thursday, right? Because as brokers, we have 10 days well, I know in Jersey, I don't know if that's everywhere, I think it is, but we have 10 days to to pay commission, right? The agent is supposed to get paid within 10 days. So I
Hmm.
implemented a policy where payday is on every Thursday, right?
Okay.
However, the cutoff is Tuesday at close of business on Tuesday. So if you have a closing on Monday or you have a closing on Tuesday morning, and you bring in you have your check, you collected the check, and then your file is in compliance because you have all your documents and everything is in. Remember the compliance part. This keeps them accountable as well, so we can
Right.
ensure that all the documents are in, which we should already have anyway. But just to make sure by the day of closing everything is in and that's received by Tuesday close of business, then you're able to get paid in a couple of days on that Thursday because now I am able to set up a schedule for myself where I know on Wednesdays I'm handling payroll, right? That's one thing I didn't outsource, like that administrative part. I do like to be hands-on with that part of it. I read somewhere like Oprah, all the money that she has, she signs every single, no check goes out with her name on it that she hasn't, put eyes on. And
Right.
I relate to that, Oprah.
I can
And
definitely understand.
and so in order to make the system work for me, okay, so now I know on Wednesday I'm processing, payroll, ensuring that everything is correct, so on and so forth. ADP, once you send it and they have a cutoff time, they send everything out. You receive the checks the next day within 24 hours, and now everyone can get paid. Now let's say if you close on a Wednesday, you close after the cutoff, right?
Hmm.
Still, now you won't get paid this Thursday, but you will get paid next Thursday. So we're
Right.
still in compliance because it's still within 10 days, right?
Right.
You're in compliance because all of your documents are in. Now I have enough time to tell you, hey, well, this is missing. I don't have the HUD. I don't have this. I don't have that, or whatever the case may be. And it just
Hmm.
keeps it, and it made it so much easier. Now I'm not running around and somebody's like, oh, I closed Monday and I'm going on vacation. Can I get paid? And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm not the bad guy anymore. This is the system. This is the
Right.
policy. This is how it goes. And it just made it like life
Great.
was,
Yeah.
I would never do it a
No.
different way ever.
Yeah, that's great advice. So I learned about how to put systems in place with pay with commissions from my CPA. So what I
Mhm.
everybody wants to get paid fast, so I thought I was doing a great thing. I was actually setting it up to where they did the commission split at escrow, so the money wouldn't even come, their commission wouldn't even come into my account. It would go straight
Really?
wire, yes, it would wire straight to the agent. And my CPA was like, this is not showing your total revenue for your company because the money never hits your
Yeah.
account. So you're not showing the revenue. I thought I was doing like, a great
Yeah,
thing, but
yeah,
it was
yeah.
like hurting my business for when, I prepare to scale to the next level. So that's something that I learned like, okay, I gotta really back in
Interesting.
and change it. But yeah, it was
Yeah.
definitely exciting for agents to be like,
Right, right, right. Oh, I know.
we
They
need
were
that wire
excited. They gonna get
immediately.
paid at closing. They were excited. I know. That's
Right, right.
awesome.
Right. But yeah, it's all a part of growth and learning, definitely. So can you, is there anything that you think about as far as like when just the growth of agents that were bottled, like a bottleneck, like anything else besides like maybe payroll that kind of got stuck that you had to figure out in the process of scaling to grow the brokerage?
You mean as it scaled from a small amount of agents and it just grew to larger agents?
Yeah, if like during
Yeah.
that quick growth, was there anything there, any aha moments where you were like, oh, I didn't
Oh
prepare
yeah.
for this?
To be honest, the bottleneck was me.
Mm,
Right. I had at the time I had a small amount of agents and I'm very hands-on and I'm all, a part of I'm at a touch point on every single part of any transaction. And I was used to being so hands-on. I started to realize as the office grew and we brought in more agents, I was the bottleneck, right? Because I had already set up a environment where I was involved in every aspect, right? But what
right.
was happening as more agents, came on, there were more questions, there were more issues, there were more fall throughs, there were more things that had to be troubled. It's like the thing with the payroll,
Hmm.
so was as an example. So I had to sit down and say, okay, I have to redirect and then let me where are the issues, the thing with the compliance. So it's when you have one or two agents, hey, where's this form or where's that form? I can't remember. You can tell them 1,000 times. You can tell them in training. You can, but then they're working. And they don't remember until it's time to actually need it, right? Whatever.
Right.
Yeah. But multiply that by 20, it's like okay. All right. I can pick up
Right.
a phone for maybe one or two, but when it's like every day and you're getting the same, I'm like, okay. So,
Hmm.
all right, let's sit down, let's regroup. I had to kind of step away from certain things and I couldn't be as hands-on as I used to be. And then I had to really pay attention to implementing systems, like
Hmm.
systems. It to me, like, is so important. I do still appreciate, and even as we grow and we're in this, tech age of, everything is technology is everything. I do appreciate still like an old school approach to certain things, right? However, it's just realistic. You have to, if you do want to grow and scale your business to a different level, systems are so important. You do have to utilize tools and I had to put systems in place. Once I realized like, okay, I can't be involved in every single situation. I have to step back and then, kind of revisit it and revamp it that way.
Hmm.
But
You
yeah.
mentioned technology. I was thinking, I wonder how useful will AI be in that capacity. So, we have our chat bots. So if there is, right now I'm researching like the data dump into AI to where can an
Hmm.
agent really connect with my AI, ask a training question or ask a where's this document question and then get the answer.
Hmm.
And one, it's possible, right? We know that technology is growing, but then two is will they really use it? And how,
Yeah,
and is it going to be uncomfortable for them? So it's really interesting how technology is going to really take part and be a piece of what we do to scale. So I guess to be
absolutely.
continued and seen.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how
Yeah.
this goes.
So you kind of mentioned the various different things that you did as far as scaling. So at what point did you realize you needed to build a team to scale? And you mentioned how everything was on you. And so what did that first hire look like? Was it that junior broker? Did you change your commission splits because you had to have a staff or support now? How did that impact your revenue? I want to hear more about that.
So, the transition from full-time agent to broker is interesting, right? Because you have to kind of make it in hindsight, right? Because I really had to figure it out on the fly. But you kind of you want to my advice for someone going into it, because I didn't take the time and I didn't know. I didn't realize this was something I needed to do. When you go into it, you have to be strategic. Like, what do I want my career and my position as broker to look like, right? I think people think that, well, it's time. I've earned my stripes. I'm going to take the test and become a broker. But what does that really look like? And I think I kind of because there's a point, right? When you're doing a lot of business, and if you are, someone that is full time as an agent, and you're doing a tremendous amount of business, you're doing great. And then I think a lot of times people think like, you know what, I'm gonna get a team. I'm gonna get a team. I've arrived, right? I'm gonna become broker, so on and so forth. But what does that look like? Because you have to understand that yes, you have all this business and you're doing a great job and you're doing you have tremendous amount of business coming in because you're putting that effort into it, right?
Right.
You're working in your business. But now when you have a team and you bring someone else on, you also now have a responsibility to your team, to that team. And I'm gonna be honest, before I became a broker, I had so many people, they always wanted to, can I be on your team? And I'm like, I intentionally did not want to build a team because I'm like, I don't, I'm so busy and you probably got it a lot. So, oh, can you mentor me? And can
Right.
this is when I was a full-time agent and I was just like, you know, no, because the level of commitment for me to do it correctly, if I'm going to tell you, hey, I'm going to train you, I'm going to mentor you, in order for me to do it correctly, I don't have that, I don't have the capacity because I'm still working at the time as a full-time agent, I'm still working in my business, right?
Right.
So that transition when I became a broker and I said, okay, I'm ready to come on and become broker, I had to kind of make a decision as to I don't have the capacity now to work as much in my business and build my own business that I was bringing on, right? So now,
Definitely.
I'm like, okay, but now I have to pay attention and, pour into my agent who actually was, and she was like one of my first agents that I did kind of bring on, like before I became broker, like as a team. She kind of like forced herself on my team. And so what I had to do was, and that was one of the reasons why I did choose to bring her along because, even though she understood I don't have the capacity to intentionally, show you. I'm a full-time agent. I don't have the capacity to intentionally mentor you and train you and show you. But she's just like, all right, she just stayed with me. She just kind of just pulled in and, pulled whatever information she needed to, which was very smart, right? That's the most you can do. Just come along, right? Because every day is
Right.
different. I would have to literally sit down and curate a day and what it would look like to actually train you. And I wasn't in the position to do that at the time. So when I became broker, she was one of the first people I did bring on my team because she had already spent so much time almost shadowing me, so to say, and still while simultaneously building her own business. So I felt comfortable, and I also felt comfortable now because there's a decision you have to make. What do I do with my business, my personal business? People that call me, and where I used to take them out every day, and so on and so forth. And I personally felt comfortable now passing that business on to her because one thing I wasn't interested in doing was necessarily being a competing broker, where
Mm.
you have some brokers who still very much full time, in the field and it's perfectly fine if it works, but I knew that, I had the agents that I had, right? They needed me more, needed more out of me to commit to that. So it was definitely a pivotal point where I had to decide and I had to switch up my business model from fully working in my business to passing that on to someone else, right?
I learned that as well very quickly. And so I actually had a 90-day coach for my agents. So what I did is
Mhm.
I built in their for their onboarding fee, I built in the cost to pay a coach. And this
Mhm.
particular coach knew me well, so she knew what I valued, what was important for my business, and she
Mhm.
was really on the same page with me as far as what I wanted to instill into the agents. And so for the first 90 days, transactionally, they could contact me regarding any transactions, but education wise, she was the first point of contact for how to get things done on the business side. And so that
Right.
was the first 90 days. So she would take them even from setting up your Google search and being found in Google and getting in, out here, the agents can have their own LLCs. And so she went
Mhm.
from really the origination of their business into, basically what does customer service look like? What does a
Right.
listing look like? What does buyers look like? And so I'm a big outsource person. So I outsource transaction management. I outsourced my 90-day onboarding. And she came in telling me, Ria, I am going to weed out anyone that is not serious about working. So she was like, I'm going to tell you that up
Nice.
front. So within that 90-day period, if they're not serious, then I'm going to coach them out of what
You'll
they're doing,
know. Oh, that's so
and so,
important.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so she gave me a discounted fee because I was she knew I was going to send anybody that comes to me to her, and that helped
Mhm.
a lot with just one, also being a producing broker. No one, you want to know that your team is supported,
Yeah.
and making that transition even from agent to broker is so important to make sure that they're supported. So the coaching, I think, really helped me
Oh
a
yeah.
lot. And also, I have a virtual brokerage, so I was really kind of scared, honestly, about that whole crabs in a bucket mentality in like metro
Yeah.
city areas. And so all of my agents are in different counties. So basically, I kind of went in with that approach, like let me spread out, so everybody's basically like 30 minutes from each other,
Okay.
and then they can more openly. My psychology was they're going to be more open to share information with each other because while I was
Yeah.
getting my broker's license, I was working for a brokerage that was very much so. It had like 100 and something agents in it. It was all within
Hmm.
one city, and the amount of just hate
Interesting.
amongst the group, I was like,
Oh,
good
yeah.
Lord. So,
Yeah.
so I tried to kind of spread out and still keep it, still keep it within like 30 minutes of each other based on where I am. I know everybody can't do that, but definitely the coach was definitely a lifesaver as far as systems because it really kind of, especially if you're
That's
bringing on a
smart.
new
Yeah.
agent, it really, really helped a lot. Did you find that you had to, as far as pricing wise, did you do any like alterations? So, for instance, when I went in with my commission, I kind of did my business model on what I needed to do as far as profit margin. And I was like, I'm just going to have
Hmm.
one split. It's no matter if you're new or old, one split, because I know based
Okay.
on my numbers that this is what I need and I'm not going to deviate. I don't care how great you are. If you are like the top producer and you don't fit my model, well then go get your broker's license, right? So that's kind of my
Right.
approach. But what was your approach to how you did your commission splits and did you have to alter it all?
So not necessarily. So what I did it a little differently, right? So I like to follow like a more, moderate approach to profits, right? And
Okay.
so because I don't want to take on too many, I'm going to be honest, I'm not really interested in bringing on too many agents. I'm not really interested. I think like quality over quantity is something that I'm focusing on. And
Hmm.
so, having that approach, I do take a more moderate approach and I do go consider it to experience, right? So if I feel like you are a newer agent and you're going to require, more input from me, more resources from the office, so on and so forth, then obviously, your split is lower than someone else that has a higher volume
Okay.
and is going to require less input from me, be more independent, bring in more business independently. So I do take that into consideration as far as experience level. And that was, the approach because I still have, again, and it could be something that, I mean, I do enjoy it. I enjoy the management part of it. I do enjoy the mentorship part of it. So I am still not as heavily involved, but I still am involved. So I do take a more moderate approach when it comes to commissions.
Okay.
So it's something that is, attractive to agents where, they're going to want to feel that they want to partner with me. Because I tell them, look at it like this, we're all independent operators, right? And we work together. So my job as a broker is to offer you whatever resources that I have, and you see if it's a good fit. And then your job is to do what you need to do, and then, partner with me on that. So there's a reason, I do want to still make it where it's still attractive, but it still has to make sense, financially for I am still running a business, so I do
Right.
keep it more moderate.
Hmm. So outside of your brokerage, what is next for Khadijah? Do you see scaling your business scaling to another level? Like what's next for Khadijah?
So, I have a few things going on, right?
Hmm.
My company, my real estate brokerage and selling real estate is like my thing, like top priority. I'm going to be like 100 years old, probably still like, maybe selling one house a year myself.
Popping lock boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But I have an investment company where I do invest in properties, develop and rehab. And then I also have a nonprofit that where we put on just two cohorts a year and we train new and emerging developers to develop and rehab, properties throughout the city of Newark and the greater area. But as far as, so with having saying that, again, to go back to systems, it was extremely important once I, branched out to my company now, Monarch Realty, that I have systems in place and my focus is, and let me be careful when I say it, like I don't like to tell agents like, what they can do and not capable of, right? Everyone, listen, whatever it is that you want to do, then you can do it, right? But I will say that real estate became so trendy like in the
Right.
past few years. it's,
Right.
it was just like everybody's like, oh, I can do it. I want to make up.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. My
Right.
cousin,
And
my brother, somebody's a real estate agent. Yeah.
oh my gosh. And I'm like, it's not that easy. It's not as
Right.
easy as you may think. So, you know what? My intention, again, like I said before, my previous brokerage where I wasn't 100% mine, right? I did have a partner in this. I wasn't the only one making decisions. Now where it's 100% mine, my goal and my vision for my company is quality over quantity. I want to keep it where I have a decent amount. I don't want to put a number on it because, if I run into you and I feel like you have what I'm
Potential.
looking for,
Yeah.
then, welcome to the team. So I don't want to put a number on it, but I do want to keep it to where it is sustainable, right? Sustainable and profitable, where I
Mhm.
can scale it, right? Where maybe one day, one of the agents I have on my team, then I can mentor and then put them into position where I can then focus on other things, but I can still have the brokerage and then maybe I can scale to open up to have a second one. But that right now, my focus is now I'm still just curating a team of independent but coachable, right?
Mhm.
Agents that, I feel like, we can still continue to grow because I'm still learning. I'm still, educating myself on, nuances in the business. As you all know, things change every day in our industry, and we
Right.
have to be able to pivot. And so that's pretty much my focus, kind of, solidifying my company now to where we're like a solid, um, organization. The very first brokerage that I worked when I first got my license, not when I first got my license, because I had my license for a while, but then I was still in corporate America. I didn't go into it full time. Maybe it was maybe like 14 years ago. And so one of the first brokerages I worked at, they have been around decades, right? Maybe like the 60s. And they are a franchise. They're like family owned, but they're a franchise, but each individual business is owned by someone in the family, right? But to the
Oh,
independently operated is
okay.
like we wouldn't just be able to just open up one. Does that make sense? Like
Okay.
they
So
have like,
their franchise branches were all within their family.
correct,
Oh,
right? So
interesting.
the particular one, yeah. So the particular one, which I love that
Hmm.
because they did grow, they did scale, but they still still
Captain in a family.
you know.
Right.
But then they all are independently owned. Like this one, the owner
Mhm.
here can't tell that one. So,
Right.
but one thing that I did take from that I love, they have been in business for so long, super successful, uber successful, but they have never had more than they've never had more than maybe 12, 15 agents, right? And
Hmm.
they do not hire anyone. Right. And I always paid attention to that. One, I felt honored, to
Right.
it made me feel, like, okay, I belong here, right? Because I was a great agent, right? But they trained me too. The training that they gave me, I remember that. And so there's something that I took with me all along, even as a full-time agent. Again, it's the reason why I refuse to build a team because I'm like, if I don't have the capacity to train you and to prepare you the way that I know that you need it and the way that it was given to me, then I'm not going to even, I'm not going to overpromise and underdeliver, right?
Right.
So it's one of those things that I kind of took from that, and I feel like that is like what I see Monarch Realty and myself, down the line, right? So my son is graduating college this year. He's in the process of getting his real estate license, right?
Hmm.
Because he's not excluded. I'm like, if you're serious, then you take the test. It's not expensive. You pay for it. And but no, he definitely has a passion for it. So things like that, ideally, then maybe this is something that, I can, implement and then maybe he can take on and so on and so forth. But that's pretty much, the vision that I see for myself and where my business is going to go. I mean,
So,
the day
so
you're doing that.
creating Yeah, creating that generational wealth through your business.
Yes.
Yeah. So I have three adult children and I told all of them to get their license. Only one did. The other two
Mhm.
weren't really interested. One of my
Right.
daughters was like, "You work too hard," but I'm not interested. You know that flued out generation. She doesn't want to work that hard. But
Uh-uh.
my oldest did get her license and actually she's not interested in real estate, but she is interested in property management. So I do have a property
Right.
management arm of my brokerage now that she enjoys that piece of real
Oh,
estate.
I love
So
that.
yeah,
See that? I love
yeah.
it. I love that. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's very important. Of course, we put all this work. It would be lovely to keep it in the family and create it
Hmm.
as generational wealth for the next generations.
Absolutely.
But what
Absolutely.
I learned is that they may not always do want to do exactly what I did, but having your broker's license gives you so many opportunities that you can
Yeah.
actually branch out or scale to different things within the industry. And just like with yourself mentioning the cohort,
Hmm.
I mean, I want to, before we close out, I want to hear more about what the plans are
Oh,
with that. That's awesome.
okay. So yeah, I'm excited. I've always had some form. I've always since day one have incorporated some form of like community, like social, social work to you say, like, you know what I mean? So I've always partnered like with the homelessness prevention in the city and, several nonprofits, things like that. I've always kind of, had my hands in some form, another, some type of outreach, right? Community outreach. And so I had the opportunity I have two partners. We founded a nonprofit where it's called Jumpstart Newark, right? So Jumpstart is a program that is actually a nationwide program. There's probably now 30 something chapters nationwide, and Jumpstart Newark is the 13th. And so what this program is, Jumpstart Newark is an organization where we train and we do like a workshop. It's a 5-week program. And so it's 5 weeks, 3 hours once a week. And we train and we have a training manual. We give resources, information on the process to into developing. Whether you want to, build something from ground up, whether you want to rehab, whatever it is, it trains you on, gives you information on that process. And so we do two cohorts a year, in the beginning of the year, then in the end of the year, and we have recently this February completed our fifth one.
Okay.
So we've graduated. Yeah, we've graduated over 100 students. Several have gone on to start projects of their own. Some were in the middle of some like wonderful development projects. And then some are just, starting out, just getting information. And, what it's very fulfilling because one, it is a nonprofit. We're not, we're doing, we literally volunteer our time, my partners and I.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is it ties into what we do as we're real estate professionals, right? So we develop, my partners, the three of us in our own right, we all, have our own developing and real estate investment businesses. And it just makes sense. We're almost like giving back, right, to individuals who are looking for the information. What we find is, and this all came from, I don't know if you're familiar with the mayor of Newark. So right before COVID, he started having these like citywide meetings, these men's meetings, right? Where he would
Uh-huh.
bring in people from the community. It was a men's meeting, so it was mostly, well, all men and me. I kind of snuck in because it was like, virtual at the
Mhm. Okay.
time. And I'm like, we were home during COVID anyway. And I'm like, okay, I just kept my camera off and I'm like, this is really interesting. Like, okay, I like what these guys are doing. So they just welcomed me in with open arms. But so what the problem was within the issue was within the community. And I don't know, I know in North and our area specifically, and it could be nationwide, I'm not sure. But the main complaint that we would hear from the community is people, from the community, people from our neighborhoods, they feel that they're being pushed out. They feel left
Mhm.
out of, they see all this growth, they see all this development, they see everything, the landscape changing, places that they were born and raised in, and they don't recognize it anymore. They already feel priced out, but then they also feel left out of, this renaissance that's happening, right? And, and I commend the mayor because he's like, okay, the reason why you feel like these things that are happening, they're not secret, right? It's
Right.
not, I mean, there are things that go on that you don't know, but there is a lot that, you that's going on. You just have to have the information, right? And so we
Right.
realized,
Right.
so what he did was he realized that it was just a lack of information. So he created these meetings. Because I could talk about this all day. He created these meetings where they literally would meet and once a month, and he would just kind of like, okay, this is what's coming up, and this is what's happening. The city has this many lots, and this is the process. And if you want to apply for a lot, this is what you need, so on and so forth, right? And you'd be surprised. So many people were like, that's all they wanted. What they needed was like, hey, how do I get my foot in the door? How do I know what's happening before I already see, the sign going up, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so that was the first part of it, right? So he piqued everyone's interest. He got everyone there to the meetings. Our program kind of derived from that. My partners were a part of that whole thing, right? The Newark Men's Meeting, and then we kind of our program kind of grew out of that because, all right, so now, all right, these guys, they know, oh, okay, so this is what's happening. This is what I need to do. This is the process to get it, to buy land from the city, so on and so forth. And they were actually going through the process and they were doing it. So what we found, there was so many people that attended, they had already went through the process and they had these lots, but now what?
Mhm.
Now what do I do? And you be surprised if it's not that, and I tell people all the time, it's not that, lack of interest, it's lack of information and lack of resources.
Definitely.
They have, okay, my grandma passed away and she left me this house. What do I do with it? I want to
Right.
fix it up. I want to do it, but how do I get the funding? How do I get, what does my credit have to look like? Who do I need to speak to? So, this is what Jumpstart does, and this is where Jumpstart North came from. So when we
Mhm.
have our cohorts, we have gotten so much support, tremendous support from the city. We have the director of zoning comes down, right? The
Oh,
director of
awesome.
the land bank comes down, they speak. We've had people, and not just North, from the city of Irvington, we've had support. We've had, an architect. They'll tell you like, hey, this is what you need to do with your drawings. This is, we'll have like people that lend money. This is what your credit needs to look like. This is where you can get funding. So we just kind of give them like the a little, some tools and resources to get to the next level. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Right.
it's very
Right.
fulfilling. I love it. And I do see, us branching out on that, but it's only twice a year because I am a busy broker. So
Right. Right. So,
we only have so much
scale
time
in
in the day.
moderation, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Well, that
But
that
yeah.
is so awesome. That is so awesome to hear, and it's so true that yeah, it's a matter of information, and having the city involved is so important because it's really important for collaboration. I see just with in my area in California, it's just like the relationships are so important because you can get stuck in
Mhm.
the process, and then you're wondering where to go next. But having that collaboration with the decision makers is really important. So I commend you for your
Absolutely.
work
Yeah.
in that. So excited and proud to have you as part of Women's Council. You are
Thank you.
definitely an advocate for your community, and that's what we like to see and we love to hear. So, and I just want to again thank you for joining us with our Women's Council of National Association of Real Estate Brokers Women in Business CEO Growth Series. And we are looking forward to and excited to seeing you as a CEO grow. Thank you so
Oh,
much,
thank you for
Khadijah.
having me. I am honored. This is great. I am also, and Women's Council is near and dear to my heart. I love what we stand for. I love the mission and what we do. It's almost like, it's just second nature. And so I am honored. Thank you for reaching out to me. Thanks for, I love the opportunity to do this and share information and resources with,
Yes.
whoever needs it.
Oh,
Yep.
definitely. We know we have great women around the country, and so our
I'm
goal
here.
is to shine a light on all of the great leaders we have in our organization. So until next time, thank you for joining our Women in Business CEO Growth Series.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.